Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
Located on Lake Pontchartrain, Brisbee's Lakefront Restaurant and Bar offers traditional West End favorites, a scenic view, oysters, and numerous tasty options. More information is available at 504-304-4125 or brisbeesrestaurant.com. At Natal's Air Conditioning, our motto is service honoring the golden rule. We're dedicated to providing the best air conditioning solution for your home or business in the New Orleans metro area. More information is available at 504-821-0005. Natal's Air Conditioning, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we'll talk a lot about what's happening with the New Orleans Saints, the LSU Tigers, and the New Orleans Pelicans. Tulane Green Wave have the week off. We'll take a week off on talking about Tulane. All that coming up here on Inside New Orleans Sports. Our guests tonight are Bradley Handwerger, freelance columnist, and also Rick Gaille of Sportsnola.com. And guys, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being with us. First of all, as we start off, Bradley, we always like to find out what you guys are involved in. Please let the folks know a little bit about what you're doing now.
A little physical therapy school. Hi, Mom. And then, but more importantly, in regards to this, I'm tweeting during games, but writing column for ericasher.com after games, and kind of keeping up with everybody else doing that.
Well, you're doing a great job, and I tell you what, it's been a valuable asset to the website, and thank you for doing it.
Thank you.
Coach Rick Gaille, so many hats. Coach, tell us a little bit about what's going on with you.
Yeah, who would have thought this 4 years ago when I retired from coaching, the things that I would end up getting involved in. Overall, it's pretty much I'm doing human analysis through sports and getting to study a lot, especially about the game of football. So I'm having fun doing that, writing for Sportsnola.com, doing work with WGSO and radio and Ken Trahan, and along with Ken and Ed Daniels on Saturday morning with the Three Tailgaters. Doing a lot of games on WGSO and streaming on Sportsnola.com again with prep games. And also on Wednesdays from 6 to 7 doing a recruiting show, Prep Recruiting Insider on WHNO TV 20. And a studio host.
Yes.
Who'd have thought that?
There you go.
Wow. We sent that into Ripley's. He didn't believe it.
He didn't believe it either. Well, believe me, he don't believe I'm here either, so there you go. Guys, Saints coming off a tough loss, 24-23 to Detroit. They're still alive in the NFC South, but gosh, it's not the season a lot of us thought it would be. Probably the best overall game we saw out of this team, with the exception of maybe the last 5 minutes of the game. And Bradley, I'll ask you first. Talk a little bit about this team, but specifically, what do you think the problem is right now in terms of the inability to close out games?
Every game they've lost. Almost every game they lost. Dallas game, let's just put that one to the side. They were just thoroughly beaten in that one. But the rest of the ones they've fallen in, it's all come down to the defense. And as I wrote in my column this past weekend, there seems to be a lack of full leadership now. Now, look, Curtis Lofton is a good leader. He's a good player. Mm-hmm. But one guy doesn't necessarily run the whole thing unless you're Drew Brees in the offense. Totally different situation. But defensively, we were talking about this earlier. Malcolm Jenkins being gone. Mm-hmm. Here's a guy who may not have caught everything thrown his way, but he was involved in setting the defensive up, especially the defensive backs. He was involved in so many plays I can remember over his time here that he, tracked down guys who everybody thought was going to go ahead and score. He would stop them. And I think when you lose that, when you lose a positive attitude in the locker room, you lose that leadership, that experience. I think that rubs off elsewhere. And you look at the secondary right now, it's young and it's not necessarily experienced. It's certainly not experienced together. And I think that's when you close out games, you've got a confidence in the guys around you. And right now, it doesn't look like that's what's going on.
Coach, what can you add? You've been in these situations.
Yes, very much so. And it's frustrating when you lose games because you do the wrong things. I call it stupid is as stupid does. That great philosopher Forrest Gump once said that stupidity has nothing to do with intelligence. It has to do with what you do, and it's your actions. And it's easy to be critical right now because when you're losing, there's so many things that you notice that are deficient. Winning sometimes on the surface glosses over some things, but everything is a potential problem. And this week I've kind of wrapped it into a lack of attention to detail, and that's something you don't correct quickly, and that's in my mind that's going to be difficult going forward, especially with this stretch that they have going on right now. You see a lack of attention to detail and execution in assignments. You see that on occasion, but especially situational calls and handling situations, which is so much a part of football.
Yes.
Being able, you do something different on 1st and 10 than you do when it's 3rd and 10. When it's 3rd and 13, you'll do something different. It's all in handling and being able to handle situations. The lack of attention to detail is an insidious creature, and I think you can really start tracing it all the way back to training camp.
Right.
And I think the one play in the Detroit game that really encompasses that was the long touchdown to Golden Tate. Here's a guy, Corey White, takes a bad angle on the interception,
Yes.
but then every other defensive back who had an angle, they had shots,
Yes.
and all of a sudden, Kenny Vaccaro takes the step in the wrong direction for no reason whatsoever. Keenan Lewis, for some reason, doesn't take the angle that he should, and that's detail. That's knowing where you're
Right.
supposed to be on the field and knowing angles, which these guys intuitively know because they've been playing it so long. It's not there right now.
Right.
Well-
Keenan Lewis was actually the biggest culprit in that whole situation right there. That poor Corey White, I feel so bad for him because he plays so hard and tries, you see that the effort is there, but everybody in the league knows 3rd down, throw it at White.
Right.
And Stafford was just throwing it over there.
Right.
And
They're going to do it till he stops it.
Yeah, and so his progress going forward is going to be critical. But Keenan Lewis was horrible on that play, and I could flat out tell you, Frank Monica at St. Charles Catholic plays a lot of cover 3, and that's what they were in. They were in 3 deep zone. And if those 3 guys would have been at St. Charles Catholic, they'd have had to defect and go off on the other sideline because Frankie would have met them.
Right.
Would have met them at the numbers. So it was really a mess with that play, and that's exactly right. A little too far here, a little too much there, and in world-class competition, a little means a ton.
Right. Plus, not realizing, as you mentioned earlier, situational football. Right. Corey White's got to realize what's happening there. You don't need to go for the pick right there. You need to get Golden Tate down and live to play another day. You could have done anything but go for the pick and whiff on that.
It was 3rd down. He tackles him right there. He had him, in front of the sticks. They punt the ball, and that and the game changes. But that, unfortunately for the Saints, it changed the other direction because Golden Tate was able to take it.
But you certainly don't go behind him.
Right.
When you look at the technique, his technique was perfect except for his last 2 steps. That he started drifting away from the line of scrimmage instead of intersecting in front of Tate. He had lost the awareness of where Tate was. If he's 1 yard to the right and goes for the ball this way, where if he doesn't get it, he's going to collision Tate. Now he's in position to make a play. Once again, attention to detail. You're drifting a yard at an angle away from the line of scrimmage instead of moving parallel or even toward the line of scrimmage.
866-3200 is the phone number. Let's head to Mid-City and Ryan. Ryan, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports.
Yes, how y'all doing this evening? I got a statement and a question. I would like to know if people could see that Corey White is the weak link. I don't understand why the coaches can't see this shit. You know what I'm saying? It's really embarrassing to see this guy on the field. This guy look like he doesn't even supposed to be in the pros. And I got one more question for LSU. The guy Jennings, he has the LSU offense looking so raggedy, so it's almost it's just a shame. You know what I'm saying? I'll just hang on and listen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it. Corey White's kind of playing out of position. I mean, he's more of a slot player than he is on the outside. Coach, why don't you take it first? Your thoughts?
But even on the long play to Golden Tate, he was a slot defender. And on the goal line pass, he was a slot defender. So they're doing their best to keep him away from the perimeter,
Right.
but you still have to be able to make plays. He's had an issue not so much with physical talent, but in what I call execution discipline, a fundamental discipline, that he's always a little off here, a little off there. He's sort of where he's supposed to be, doing what he's supposed to do, but his eyes are in the wrong place. He's looking back when he should be looking in the other direction. So he's got some execution discipline to be able to handle. And I'm afraid Ryan's right. It's in question right now about whether he's really good enough.
Well, who else do they have,
Well,
Bradley?
that's what I was just going to say was in the NFL, especially when you have such limited rosters, you play who you have, and right now they don't have a lot at that position. You have Keenan Lewis, but then who are you going to play? Stanley Jean-Baptiste?
Right.
He hasn't shown that he can get in there and do anything. Corey White is Corey White. Patrick Robinson, people were yelling to get Corey White in when Patrick Robinson was playing.
That's right.
He's banged up a little bit right now. So there's not exactly the guy in there on the roster that you can replace him with.
The LSU question.
We've talked about this over and over again. Coming into the season, I always thought this was going to be a year that was going to prove whether Cam Cameron can really be an effective coordinator or not. There's a reason he's bounced around from job to job. And with two young quarterbacks, the danger was getting too far afield from what they're capable of doing. Now, Cameron had an opportunity here because Les Miles isn't going to let you be too adventuresome. All right, so he really had an opportunity to take it slow, be patient, and teach and do effectively what the quarterbacks do. We've seen very little of that so far.
Bradley, can you add anything to that?
Well, I just, and this goes along with the Cam Cameron point, obviously he has coached and taught some good quarterbacks, but are we learning now that it's more on the quarterbacks that he was teaching, or is it more on him? And the thing that I wonder about with this team is these are both quarterbacks who do a good job of getting out of the pocket.
Yes.
Why limit them to what you want to do as a coach instead of taking what they do best and letting that influence the offense? I've always felt that obviously you recruit who you recruit, but why don't you call the offense to the talent that you have on the roster?
Yeah. Bradley, I'm with you. I'm pulling my hair out because they're young players. To try to make them into another Mettenberger is not going to work. You got to get those guys to where they have a comfort level. And it's a little bit easier for them if they're out on the edge using their athleticism, the ability to go through maybe one or two progressions. If it's not there, use your legs. Make something positive. By putting them in the pocket in a lot of cases, you're asking them to go through their progressions. The next thing you know, the line is caving in on them. And that is, to me, been a big problem, a huge problem for this team so far this year.
And that, to me, merges with what you were saying is that, if you're Cam Cameron, coach them. 2 or 3 years down the line, okay, maybe they can be that pocket passer.
Right.
But you have to work with them, and they're so young right now. Let them be who they are. They were these running quarterbacks, these guys who were able to use their speed in high school. Why move away from that? That's my question.
That's why you recruited them. Isn't that why you recruited athletic quarterbacks? It's not a secret when they were recruited that they were terrific. They're terrific throwers now. I tell you, when the ball comes out of Brandon Harris's hand, he spins it, as they say, and it's really obvious. But he also has to be introduced to college football in a progressive, logical, meaningful manner. And there's a reason that you recruited athletic quarterbacks. Okay, let's use them for what they can do, which also goes, when you think about it, goes very well with what Coach Miles wants to do in the running game.
Sure.
Power running game and quarterbacks on the edge. Now you're making the defense, and this is the key to having a successful running game. You make the defense assign somebody to the quarterback on every play. Otherwise, they can outnumber you by one defender. It's mathematics and geometry.
Back to the Saints we go, 866-3200. Guys, I think Deuce McAllister said it this week that the Saints have a lot of young players that are talented, but they don't know how to win in the NFL. Bradley, I mean, they got a few guys that are sprinkled here and there in their first year, but some of these guys have been in this system for 3-4 years now. I mean, what does it take to learn how to win in the NFL at this point?
It's a good question. You look at Seattle. Seattle last year was one of the younger teams, rolled through the NFL, won the Super Bowl and as large a margin and as handily as I've seen in a long time. So I don't really like using that excuse that they're young and they don't know how to win. A lot of these guys played in college programs that won. A lot of these guys have played in front of 70 and 80,000 people before. A lot of these guys have played against some of the most athletic guys in the country. I don't necessarily buy that excuse. I think it goes back to, again, what I wrote this week is a little more of a leadership deal. And I mean, think of all the people that the Saints jettisoned this year, be it because they didn't think they had anything left or be it because there was a salary cap. I mean, you have Malcolm Jenkins, Roman Harper, Jabari Greer, obviously the injury. You have Brian De La Puente, you have Jed Collins, you have Lance Moore. I mean, so many of these guys had been around the system for a while.
Throw Smith and Vilma in there, too.
Throw Smith and Vilma in there. So I think there are people who had been around and knew how to lead by example, and I think that's where the winning comes from.
7 players on the offensive side are still on this team from the 2009 Super Bowl championship team. None, 0 from on the defensive side of the ball. Coach, what could you add? Is there a difference between major college football and learning how to win there and winning on the NFL level?
Of course. And every step you take is going to be something different. But along with that, every team has a unique personality, and it's up to the coaching staff. Gosh, I'm on coaching staffs tonight. Wow, what a shock. Every team, once again, that unique personality, it's up to the coaching staff to find out what that personality is. With some teams, you could walk alongside with them. You hold hands, lock arms, and you walk forward together. Other teams, you have to get out in front and show the way. Other teams, you have to get behind and push them. So the coaching staff, the team doesn't have the necessary leadership or the necessary followership because the essence of leadership is to have somebody follow you. So you've got to have some followership there as well. The coaching staff has got to be able to take that position, and if you got to do what you got to do as a coaching staff. And quick, something I see with coordinators, especially at the NFL level, they'll have a system. And if you have the talent that it fits the system, they're successful, they keep a job. They don't really adjust their systems at the pro level to match what they have. Seattle's done a really good job of it, and Atlanta a couple years ago when Dirk Cutter first went there. So we've seen a few examples of that, but the coaching staff just can't sit back. They've got to diagnose what they have as a football team and then take the appropriate positions.
Isn't that something that should have been happening in training camp? I mean, that's
before training camp.
But yes. Absolutely. I mean, you have OTAs and everything, but that's something you in training camp you see quickly. Pads are on, what the guys are going to do and how they're going to play, and maybe because they were playing against each other, everybody got fooled up in at the Greenbrier, and now we're seeing the results.
Well, I think that's the biggest misnomer. I think it's fool's gold in a lot of cases when you know the guy across from you. I've talked about it on this show, I've talked about it on my radio show. After you played against a guy for a couple years and you're in training camp against him, sure you can excel against him. First of all, you know what the other guy's doing. You know the playbook pretty much on the other side with the offense or defense. You know the strengths and weaknesses of the guy you're going against. And in a lot of cases, you can capitalize on that and maybe have a little bit of fool's gold,
That to me is the biggest reason why I feel like NFL teams for at least 3 or 4 days should scrimmage against another team. And this is the first year in a while that the Saints haven't done that as far as I can recall. And I think that's a big difference right now.
Yeah, it is. Switching to the defense, probably played their best game of the year against Detroit. It was really sad to see what happened on the meltdown in the last 5 minutes, and of course, the inability to be able to come back from adversity. Right. I mean, that's another thing. This team under Peyton, under Vilma, under Breeze, you never felt like they were out of it. You knew they could overcome adversity. This team has a tough time overcoming adversity. Yeah,
they let one play lead to another bad play, lead to another bad play. And that comes back to leadership and followership. Followership as much as leadership. Not everybody can be a leader. You need more people that can pick themselves up, but let's follow the middle backer. And then the free safety, you usually have to take that position, but everybody's got to have the confidence to let that play go and get on to the next one. And you can't let, once again, getting back to the theme, as stupid is, as stupid does. We all do something stupid and go, man, what did I, in our daily lives, why did I do that? And You got to put it out of your mind, move on to the next one, and the coaching staff and the players together have got to be able to do that. Who's relying on who right now? We're not seeing much of it.
And, defensive-wise, you wonder, was Rob Ryan trying to do a little bit too much this year? Kind of saw what he did last year and was like, all right, let's take it to the next step. Instead of staying basic or staying within his lane. And now I wonder if we're getting back to that now. We're seeing him say, you know what, let's take pages 86 and 87 out of the playbook and let's go back to the beginning.
But isn't there a catch-22 there, guys, of being too predictable? I mean, normally you want to graduate a little bit more from one year to the next within a system to be able to do more, especially if guys have a grasp of what you're already doing. And then don't you run the risk now of being too vanilla?
Chaos is not multiplicity. If you're chaotic in what you're doing, all you're doing is confusing yourself. You're not confusing the opposition. If you make a mistake this week against the Packers, guess who's going to find it and make you pay for it right then? So if you can't execute something, it doesn't belong. It doesn't belong in the game plan. Because once again, chaos doesn't make things multiple.
Anything you could add?
No, it's too much, and people's heads start swimming, and then it's just do what you do it well, and play.
866-3200 to Houma, Louisiana, and Remington. Remington, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports.
Yeah.
Hey, Remington.
I've seen about the Packers defense, and they haven't been really doing too good against the run.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering, should the Saints go with a running attack or a passing attack against the Packers this week?
Remington, thank you. Thanks for the phone call. Guys, I think that's if there's a chink in the arm, if there's an Achilles heel, it is the Packers' run defense. Now, the Saints are a little bit hurt now. I mean, you got, obviously, you're looking at a situation where Pierre's out for 2 to 3 weeks with the shoulder. Kyrie Robinson had the forearm. He didn't practice today. So they're a little bit hamstrung, and you've got, obviously, Ingram now coming off the injury. Your thoughts?
It's the place where the Saints can hurt the Packers, and it's the place where the Saints right now on offense suddenly are the thinnest. Ingram, I think he showed a little bit last week that he's going to be able to get back in the game pretty quickly. And Travers's Cadet, he's not going to wow you with a lot of things, but I've always liked the way he runs. He just kind of stays humble and does what he has to do. The big loss to me is Kyrie and Pierre, though. I mean, those are two guys that Kyrie runs hard and he runs ferocious, and Pierre just doesn't go down. And those are two things that I don't think either of the guys on the roster right now who are healthy do well.
Right. Plus, I think you could be more unpredictable with Pierre Thomas in the game as well.
Absolutely. There's 3 things that the Saints have to do. They've got to score, they've got to score, they've got to score. That's, they've got, and I'm not talking about field goals. They've got to make this a shootout while maintaining possession of the ball. They can't just run the ball without getting the ball in the end zone. They've got to finish drives and get it in the end zone. The Packers are a team that the Saints' power running game especially, because the Saints early in the game, the first 3 quarters, they use a lot more zone blocking, and then in the fourth quarter, when they're ready to get in their 4-minute offense, start running more of a power attack, and that's where Kyrie Robinson especially has been hugely effective, hitting it downhill. Well, against the Packers, that power running game has got to come out from the very beginning, because you want to keep Rodgers off the field, yes, but you also want to get the Packers going into the fourth quarter having to realize that we've got to score every possession. You want the Packers to make errors. You got to force them to make an error. And the Saints defense is not really good at forcing the other team into errors, but the game situation can perhaps force the Packers into errors by getting in a situation where if we don't score or if we kick a field goal, we're going to lose. All right, we've got to get the ball in the end zone. Then in the fourth quarter, perhaps you could get a little panic setting in on the Packers side. Now they make the big miss, so to speak, and that's how the Saints can use the running game, and especially the power running game, to win the game.
The secondary obviously has been nothing what we thought it would be going into the season. Obviously, Champ Bailey, that situation not working out, turning to Patrick Robinson. Obviously, he had his problems. Now Corey White, never really going in and filling that spot from Jabari Greer. Safety position, losing Jarris Byrd, who was struggling to begin with, no doubt about it. We saw more of a 3-safety look last week with Marcus Paul, who I want to say in a limited amount of snaps, looked like he played pretty well. Is that something we may see more of now with maybe ball in the mix here, especially with the problems that you're having when you want to try to go with multiple corners on the field? Coach?
Yeah, the Saints were going to do that all along. The safety position in the NFL has changed dramatically over the last 5 years, really, last 10 years. 10 years ago, you never would have drafted a safety in the first round, just like you never would have drafted a guard in the first round back then. But those positions have become much more important because now the safety position is a space person, and there's not much differentiation between free safeties and strong safeties. So the nickel position is becoming a specialized situation. It's not your third corner, it's one of your better safeties playing at the nickel and the dime position. So you try to take the corners, and there's not too many of them. You get them on the outside, try to hope that they can hold up out there, and then try to get your disguises and your multiplicity in the secondary because of your safety play. It's not the same 3 players or even 4 players when they go dime that you were going to have. But yes, that's going to be manned much more out of the safety position.
What did you?
I mean, it's what they did so well last year, and it's. If they played well last week, a lot of it is because they kind of went back to what they were doing.
Yes.
That 3 safety look, not the same 3 safeties we saw last year, but you know, obviously Raphael Bush is a guy who's been in the system. He's a hitter. He knows what he's doing. Vaccaro, same way. Marcus Ball, you know, looked like he was playing pretty well. And you know, Sunseri's a guy who obviously I think can bring something to the field. He obviously got a championship pedigree at Alabama. He learned under Nick Saban. I believe he's a coach's son.
Yes,
so there's all sorts of reasons that he's stuck on the team. Get him on the field.
Yeah, maybe question his speed a little bit, but not obviously his preparation and his knowledge of the game. You can see it already for him.
Sure.
The graduation from the University of Alabama to the NFL. Back to the phone lines we go. 866-3200. Jimmy's on the West Bank. Jimmy, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports.
How you doing?
Hey, Jimmy.
Why is Joe Morgan not playing?
You got me on that. They finally threw a deep ball this week, but thank you for the phone call. Bradley, any thoughts?
I try to figure this one out on a weekly basis,
too.
and I don't know. I mean, the only thing I can think of is that they just really, really, really like the way Robert Meacham blocks. But you know, when Joe Morgan played a couple years ago before his injury, he was a guy who was getting out getting out wide and blocking.
Yes.
He was blocking well. So I don't really understand the move to not have him active.
Yeah, it looked like in training camp or pre-training camp, mini camp and the like, that he was going to be the odd man out. You know, you could just see it in his mood that you know, he was struggling physically.
But really
then
coming
he
back
came
from the injury, right?
And by the time we get to the end of training camp and the season's beginning, you go, wow, he's really starting to come around, and then he's disappeared.
Right.
And when somebody disappears, it's usually because the player's not playing good enough. Because the coaches are trying to get the best guys out there.
Coach, you brought it up on this show, I want to say 2 months ago, about using him in kickoff returns on the special teams.
Right.
I mean, it's something that at the very least, get him on the field and use his speed.
Speed, it kills, and not just on the highway.
Right.
And so there's got to be, as we so often find out, there's always a story behind the story. So his performance in practice, either because of something physically or whatever, is just not up to speed because he's been inactive more than he's been active, I believe.
Right. Final call before we go to our first break. Dwayne is in Belle Chase. Dwayne, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports. Okay, we've lost Dwayne, so let's head to our break. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Eric Asher with you, along with Bradley Handwerger and Coach Rick Gaille. We'll be right back after these messages.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by.
Located on Lake Pontchartrain, Brisbee's Lakefront Restaurant and Bar offers traditional West End favorites, a scenic view, oysters, and numerous tasty options. More information is available at 504-304-4125 or brisbeesrestaurant.com. At Natal's Air Conditioning, our motto is service honoring the golden rule. We're dedicated to providing the best air conditioning solution for your home or business in the New Orleans metro area. More information is available at 504-821-0005. Natal's Air Conditioning, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile. You're watching WLAE, New Orleans Public Television. Find us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports, each and every Thursday night with our live broadcast here on WLAE TV at 6 p.m., on Friday nights at 10 p.m. here on WLAE TV, and now on Pelican Sports Television in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette at 9 p.m. on Friday nights. So make sure you check us out if you don't set that DVR. Tonight, Bradley Handwerger, freelance journalist and columnist for EricAsher.com. Also, Coach Rick Gaille of Sportsnola.com are our guest. 866-3200 is the phone number. Guys, Drew Brees has taken a lot of criticism, deserved. But before we talk about Drew Brees, I want to talk about that offensive line. A lot of Brees' problems has been under duress, okay? The inability to climb the pocket clean, being able to have to get out on the edge, throwing the ball on the run. The offensive line has been shaky. This past week, it was coming from all areas. From the outside, when you look at the tackles, who Armstead and Streif didn't play real well. And, of course, what this team is banked on throughout Brees' career, the interior of the offensive line, well, you know, whether it's the two guards or the center, they were porous. Coach, as you broke the film down, what did you see?
There was a significant difference when Jonathan Goodwin went down.
I agree with that.
And it's not because Tim Lolito can't handle a position, but something that really went without much notice is how fast Brees was getting the ball from one center to the other, especially out of the shotgun. That Jonathan Goodwin is extraordinarily consistent with getting the snap back there quickly. And it looked like when Lolito was in there, he wanted to make sure that he completed all the snaps. And there were a lot of floaters going back there. Now, we're talking about fractions of a second, but once again, we're talking about world-class competition as well. It looked like the defensive ends were off sides a couple of times. They were getting such a jump, but the snaps were significantly slower from Lolito. Grubbs has only been average at best. Better than average in the run game, pass protection,
yes.
Only okay. Goodwin was able to help cover up a little bit of that with him. Mm-hmm. But Goodwin is physically only average. He gets a lot out of himself for being, he's a better than average player with only average physical ability, but he's, for the first time in his career, has had to put up with injury. And Jari Evans has only been average as well, not nearly as good as we know that he can be. And if those three guys are only average, and the snap is not getting back there judiciously, where Brees can get it and get a tenth of a second or even a half, 5/100ths of a second is significant at that particular level. And all of those factors are leading to the duress that he's been facing.
Right. Running game's been fine. This line has really blocked well in the running game. But, man, this team makes its money on passing the football and keeping Brees clean. Bradley, what have you seen?
I mean, it starts with the line, obviously, like you said, and Evans has lived off his reputation, I'd say, for 2 or 3 seasons now. Where he was in 2009, 2010, he has not been near that the last couple of years in my mind. Grubbs, I think they thought was going to come in from Baltimore and be a road grader and really be a guy to handle things. But like you said, he hasn't really stood out, kind of just been average. Armstead, we forget, still young. He hasn't even started a full season yet. He's still running through everything and seeing everything. But let's not take things away from Detroit. That's one of the best defensive lines in the NFL right now.
And they handled it for the first 3 quarters.
They really did.
First
3 quarters.
I agree with you. When Goodwin went out, you saw a difference with Lolito for sure. Right. But we saw a lot of pressure on Brees, especially in the second half.
Sure. But the other thing I was going to add was and we don't necessarily see this from the TV as much because the camera angle doesn't give us everything. Yes. But I wonder about the receivers still. One of the knocks last year was they weren't getting open, and you saw it in person. They weren't getting open.
Right.
Drew Brees has to have his hand on the ball a tick or two longer than maybe he's expecting, and that's again, world-class athletes, that's all the difference in the world.
Yeah. No, I would agree. And it is a problem right now. The inconsistency with the wide receivers. Speaking of, Herman is in New Orleans East. Herman, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports. Okay, we've lost Herman. He wanted to talk about Brandon Cooks. Let's talk about the wide receiver position. Marcus Colston has not been the same player this year. With all the fanfare on Brandon Cooks, he's not been effective in the return game. You would have expected something out of him by now. And let's face it, I know they're utilizing him close to the line of scrimmage, but a lot of us thought that he may be the deep threat.
I think Sean looked at it and said, all right, I've got a guy with the same speed, the same kind of movement as Darren Sproles, and maybe he's finding that he doesn't. Or maybe he's finding that other teams at this point know exactly what they're going to do with Brandon Cooks, and it's hard to get a guy loose when the other team knows what's coming.
But he's been their most consistent receiver to date.
Agreed.
They've gotten the ball to him more than anybody else, and which is pretty remarkable for a new guy coming in.
But not what we envisioned, right, Coach?
No, but I'm finding this incredibly interesting in looking at the coach's tape. Teams still respect the Saints' speed. The safeties, whether it's 3 deep or 2 deep, they're still playing deep.
Is that why the running game is so effective?
Yes, that's certainly one of the keys, especially if they try to play 2 deep, which teams want to do because the seam passing game is so effective for the Saints. So they prefer to play a 2 deep type of thing and keep the safeties a little more inside. But one of the concerns we had coming into the year was that the safeties we keep getting tighter and tighter and tighter and challenge Breeze to try to throw the ball over the top. But the safeties have maintained their depth, thinking that their underneath people can handle what the Saints are doing. It was encouraging to see Breeze overthrow a ball in the first quarter. That was something that I had maintained coming into the week, that Breeze hadn't overthrown any deep ball coming into the year. And in the first quarter, wow, he overthrows one. And what happens after that? Stills knows he can just run. And he doesn't have to try to gauge his speed to what Breeze can do. And Breeze can still get the ball 48 to 50 yards down the field if on his 5th step, not his 7th step, it's got to be 5 steps, back foot hits the ground, 1 hit step up, turn the ball loose, and that's and we've got to see more of that, even with the safeties playing deep.
I know a little bit from the physiological standpoint here, but from a coaching standpoint, and you've seen injuries throughout, how much did his strained oblique in the preseason hamper him to this point where maybe he wasn't fully recovered and getting the pop?
It certainly has to, because that's not an injury that's going to heal very quickly, but then we don't know how badly, and we knew they were cautious, how bad that was hurt. It comes down to technique, and certainly the oblique has every bit to do with it as the shoulder, but you've seen a bit of decisiveness from Breeze as well, but less at home, and it's amazing to me, and look at it, that at home it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 when he's under the center or the gun. A shotgun snap takes 2 steps. Okay, that's it. So it's 1, 2, 3, back foot hits the ground, 1 hit step, the ball's out on the road. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hitch, look. So it's incredible how much hesitation he has on the road as opposed to at home.
Well, and also his decision making under duress. It's the one thing that he's got to really corral going forward. He's been able to get away with it in the past. This is not the same offensive line. He's got to understand that, and he's also got to understand that his mistakes, they can be not just drive killers, but game killers for this team.
One of the things that I think everybody appreciates, and especially the guys in the locker room appreciate, is his never say die attitude, because you follow that. That's the guy that you want to go on the field with and know that if you're 28 points down in the fourth quarter, this is a guy that's going to think you're going to come back. On the other hand, it's also the biggest Achilles heel to him, because if he's not going to give up, then he's going to make these bad decisions under duress. He's not going to be making the right decisions. Instead of just going down and living to play the next down, he's going to put the ball in a bad position.
Sometimes the best play is no play.
Yeah.
Just get it to the line of scrimmage. A punt counts.
Let's head to the phone lines. James is in New Orleans. James, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, James, you with us?
No, I'm about to go on TV.
James, you are on TV.
You're here now, dude.
Let's put James on hold. Let's go to the next caller, guys. Is it Greg in Folsom? Let's go to Greg in Folsom. Greg, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports.
Hey.
Hey, Greg.
My question is, why did we move Greenbrier? I think it made him incomplacent. I'm answering my question, but I'm asking you guys.
Greg, thank you for the phone call. A lot of people have said Greenbrier was just not the good choice to send these guys to a resort.
Then why are the Cowboys going to Oxnard and doing all right? That to me is yeah, they played well when they went to Millsaps. They played well when they stayed here. But you know what? When they were at Nicholls State in that dreaded heat, they weren't exactly taking the NFL by storm. It's not about where you're practicing. It's about the team and the makeup and the leadership and the coaching.
Attention to detail. Let's get back to that. I think that the eye was cast at the Greenbrier, not because they were at a resort. I mean, that's something, when you're practicing there because you can get more work in the same amount of time.
Yes.
And that's critical in the NFL now, because what is mandated? The amount of time, not the amount of repetitions. Yeah. Repetitions aren't mandated. It's how much time that you could spend doing what. So you go to a climate like that, the coaching staff has got to be the burr under the saddle to the players in that situation, get more work in the same amount of time because the conditions are conducive to that. If you ease up a little bit and you get one less repetition, I mean, think of it. If you've got 80 players in a training camp at a certain point, and each player gets one less rep than they should get during the course of the day, and you multiply those man reps over several days, what do you get? Frayed at the edges, lack of attention to detail, little mistakes that cost you games, especially in situations.
Let's go back to James. James, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports. How you doing tonight, James?
Yeah, just lack of attention to detail.
James, you got to turn your TV down. I got to move on, my friend. Next caller, guys. Who is it? Let's go to Tony on the West Bank. Tony, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys for taking my call tonight. Awesome show tonight. I have a quick question for you guys on the panel, and I'm going to hang up and listen to y'all response. Wanted to find out, we heard Drew Brees over the past few weeks say he'd love to play till, he's 45 years old. And I'm sure when Brett Favre was in the league, look how we beat him up in that last game before we went to the Super Bowl. We basically retired Brett Favre. And I see a lot of similarities in Drew Brees later in his career, like Brett Favre. He didn't want to take the hits, Favre. He got rid of the ball. He threw a lot of interceptions. Are y'all seeing a lot of that, just like we saw with Brett Favre late in his career? And how many years do you think Drew Brees has left in the tank?
Tony, thanks for the phone call.
Good, really good question. Drew Brees' body will allow him to play 10 more years, but his shoulder won't. He still has the anchors in there. As you're studying now as a physical therapist, when you're either peaking, you're either going up or you're going down. With the number of anchors that he has in his shoulders, and you're looking from year to year, it's going to be small. We're talking about small increments of decline, but his shoulder can't get better. So his shoulder's going to wear out before the rest of his body, and we know his will is not going to wear out. There's certain guys you can only take out on his shield. Somebody's going to have to tell him at a certain. I don't see it in his play right now that he's getting rid of the ball to try to protect himself from getting hit. He's trying to get rid of the ball and try to make a play when he's under.
I would agree with that. How long do you think he's got? Just ballpark.
I mean, you can't go more than 3 year increments.
I'm thinking the same thing. You can't go more than 3 years at a time.
3 to 4 years before he's really good. But I think that there are some similarities. But I also think Brett Favre was always a gunslinger. He was always a guy that was just going to throw the ball and didn't care what happened to it. Drew Brees has generally been a pretty smart quarterback and been a guy about pinpoint precision and about preparing and about being the guy who's one step ahead of everybody. And his mind isn't going anywhere. Drew is here as he was in 2009, as he was in 2006. That alone tells me he can get 4 more years, 5 more years. It's going to be whether his body holds up.
And you can lengthen his career if you start to maybe change things a bit. Run the football, okay? Right. Don't put everything on his proverbial shoulders each and every week to win the game for you.
Right.
And that's something that obviously they have not done quick enough, honestly, in terms of realizing where they are. They've got a running game. It's effective. Utilize it.
You know what? This year the problem hasn't really been the running the ball. It's been the defense. He all of a sudden it's gone from let's just put everything on his shoulders because we can't run the ball to we got to put everything on his shoulders because we got to score points.
Right.
And if the defense isn't going to hold its part, then he's going to have to step up and do more.
Right. Back to the phone lines we go. Royce is in Mid-City. Royce, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Royce. Okay, guys, you're going to have to turn the TV down and listen on the telephone. Let's head to the next caller. Hunter is in Metairie. Hunter, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports.
Ask you, if I could, 2 general questions for the panel. The first one is very non-specific general question. How do the horses of the New Orleans Saints rank this season versus the season, say, as far back as 2008? Where does our athletic talent and intellectual talent rank? And my second question is, which season do you feel was, particularly the Saints offense, the greatest one we've seen out of the Saints? 2008.
Hunter, thanks. Appreciate it.
I don't think there's any question on the second one. 2011 was by far the best team I've seen in my time covering the Saints. They were just unbelievable, offense, defense. As far as where this team ranks athletically versus 2008, I would say there's more athleticism on this team. I can't really speak to the intellect of the guys. You know, I'm not around them every day, and we don't see them in every situation.
We're not in the classroom.
Yeah, I mean, I would say at least on par with. But athletically, this team has more athleticism. Just why isn't it coming forward and doing its job?
Right.
Yeah, from 2008 to 11, you were seeing an increase in athleticism, and in this league, you get old fast.
Yeah.
So from 11 to 13, you were seeing a decline, and there was a concerted effort this past year to get younger and to get more athletic.
Yes.
And in this league, when you get younger and more athletic, it also means that you're getting them cheaper. So you're able to try to balance that throughout the roster. It hasn't quite worked out the way that we wanted to, but I think that we're on an incline athletically. A couple of players more, but when you're looking at a Stills, when you're looking at a Cooks, when you're looking at people like that, even Graham, who is still making progress, even Hill as a third tight end, you're becoming more athletic. The versatility at the running back position as well. So we're more athletic than we were a year ago, and that's going.
Well, does that hurt them intellectually in terms of absorbing the system when you bring in these young guys who are not seasoned veterans? When you look back, even the guys that they brought in, the Fajitas, the Shanleys, those guys were veteran guys.
Right.
You mix those in with a guy like Jonathan Vilm, who came in from New York and immediately absorbed the system and was the quarterback on the defense. So you've had some cerebral guys who had some skins on the wall. Right. Now you're bringing in guys who are fresh from college, and you're hoping that they'll grow within your system.
In 2008, you had the ability to do that because of the salary cap. Drew Brees all of a sudden is one of the top paid guys in the NFL. It takes a significant chunk out of what you can do when you're building a roster. And now, instead of going to the Fujitas, to the Vilmas, you have to go to the first, second, third, fourth round of the draft.
Right. That is a great point. Right. Deborah is in Gentilly. Deborah, thanks for calling Inside New Orleans Sports.
Yes. Hi.
Hey, Deborah.
My question, I just want everyone to know, it's not where the Saints practice this year. I think it's a lack of leadership and communication. And what do you think about that?
Deborah, thanks for the phone calling. I think she's right on in a lot of cases. I mean, I would have liked to have seen maybe a little tougher camp, but I wasn't there. I mean, I'm just hearing from but I'm with her, guys.
Tougher camp, yes. And let's go all the way back to mini camps and the like back there. It's what you do with what you got, and it's repetition, repetition, repetition. Especially when they got to training camp, you make it difficult by keeping the tempo up and getting more repetitions in the same amount of time. She's exactly right. There's nothing. Repetition penetrates even a dull mind, and you can overcome perhaps an innate lack of intelligence through through repetition. So I think that the training camp was a sound idea going to West Virginia, but only if you got more and not the regular.
Right, and again, looking at this team now, as you mentioned as we opened the show, there is a little bit of a lack of leadership there. They've lost there's a void there. It's obvious.
Sure, absolutely. And she makes a brilliant point when she talks about the communication.
Yes.
That secondary has been rotating people, and it's
since
hard.
Game 1.
It is hard when you're on the field to not be comfortable with the guy next to you because he doesn't know what you're saying or your hand language or
you can't
your
trust
anything.
him.
I mean, there's a lot to the communication.
Right, and trust is a big part.
Trust is huge.
Right.
Trust is why people play football. Right. Okay, the number one motivator in war is that you're going to fight for your buddy. And it's the same thing in football. You want to trust the person next to you because you know he's fighting for you and you're fighting for him, and that trust cannot be overvalued.
And you know he's going to be where he needs to be, so you can be where you need to be.
You just turn it loose and
That's
play.
right, and you can turn it loose and play. Royce is in New Orleans. Royce, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports.
How you doing?
Hey, Royce.
I wanted to know what y'all think is the issue with the defense. Does Rob Ryan need to maybe come with a new scheme? Like maybe blitz more, blitz less, or maybe is it the personnel? Like maybe they need to get new players to make the defense better. What do y'all think?
Thanks for the phone call, guys.
You can only do what your players, and this is the tricky part. A coach has got to evaluate who he has and use them in the best way possible. Don't give them more than they can do. Don't make them do stuff they can't do. And that's what great coaches do. And that's why really there's, even though it's world class, you see the constant rotation of coaches, but there's a few people that are always in one place. Dick LeBeau, for example, and some other people around the league. They're not going anywhere fast. They're going to be very consistent because they can mold whatever they're doing to the available personnel at that particular time. And the worst thing you can do is get ahead of what your players can do. Having to cut back right now really is very difficult to do because now the player can't do anything the way that he's supposed to do. Right. You've got to be progressive. When in doubt, cut it out and don't have it to begin with.
Bradley, can you add anything to that?
One of the things that Rob Ryan did last year, that he came in as he's going to run a 3-4, and this is what he's going to do. We didn't see a whole heck of a lot of 3-4 last year, and I think that was a testament to him molding his scheme.
Personnel
to
dictated that
the
he couldn't do
personnel.
it. Right.
And you haven't seen as much of that this year, and you wonder if that's the problem. Is maybe he is like put his foot down and said, all right, I'm going to do what I do. Forget what y'all do. He needs to get back to molding to the personnel.
The Ryan family does that. Right. This is a Ryan family DNA issue here, I believe, because in all of them, in the second year that they were either a coordinator or a head coach, there was not improvement.
Well, guys, there's also a track record with Sean Payton. If his defensive coordinators don't produce, they're normally gone, okay? They're interchangeable. Let's shift gears to LSU. Big win over Kentucky last week. Bradley, is this the offensive line played their best game of the season, I thought. Defensive line, they played well. I've said all year long, they're going to go as far as those lines go. Was that fool's goal?
Not to be the bearer of bad news, but Kentucky's probably not the team that everybody thought they were at 5-1. They went to Florida and struggled and lost. LSU went to Florida, struggled and won. And then we saw what Florida did against Missouri this past week. And maybe Florida's not the greatest team to be to be kind of guiding your thoughts on. So I think a little bit of what we saw this weekend was LSU probably did take a step or two forward. But Kentucky's not the greatest team. This week against Ole Miss, you're going to see an SEC quality defensive and offensive line on the field, and an SEC quality quarterback and an SEC quality defensive backfield.
Right.
And I think you're going to see a little bit different game. And I think we'll see how far they have come on Saturday.
Coach, what can you add to that?
It's difficult for LSU this week. Ole Miss is really good, and it's good to see the Mississippi schools doing well. They've been both downtrodden so well. So you can be happy.
Just not this week.
No, exactly. Right. No, I'm not talking about this week at all. But it's good to see this rivalry get back to what I remember it back when I first became aware of it in 1959 and the 60s when it was the preeminent rivalry in the South, LSU and Ole Miss. So it's good to see that coming back, and you've got that real rivalry feel this particular weekend, but LSU is a decided underdog. What do they have to do to win? This is going to sound like the Saints game. Bo Wallace has got to contribute. He has historically not played well, the Ole Miss quarterback, in big games, even though he did play well against Alabama. Has he really turned the corner or not? He's got to help contribute. Has not thrown an interception in an SEC game.
Right.
You know, they got to make that happen. LSU's got to make the game close going into the fourth quarter and try to have Ole Miss make a panic error, that they've got to force something to be able to happen. Now, LSU's equipped to do that. Their offensive line has got to play great. The quarterbacks have got to be in position to not kill them. Don't lose the game. Yeah. But then that goes back to how well they're schooled for this week.
Bradley, your thoughts on this game coming up against Ole Miss?
Ole Miss is just really good. They won me over when they won at Texas A&M following up the Alabama game. I questioned whether they would be able to carry it over, and they obviously have. It's a really good team, and unless you can get solid play from LSU out of the quarterbacks, I'm not sure I can buy LSU coming out of this one on top.
I can't see them being one-dimensional and winning. I mean, they've got the talent at the skill positions, especially the wide receiver position, to get the ball out there. The quarterback's going to have to do. They're going to have to do something. He's got to be at least a factor in this game going forward, whoever it's going to be, whether it's going to be Harris or it's going to be, we all believe it's going to be Jennings at this point. But it'll be interesting. I don't think you can just run the football and expect to beat Ole Miss this weekend. But I tell you what, the defense is playing better. I like what they're doing with Beckwith. I love Jamal Adams right now. Hunter played really well last week. It'll be nice to see if he can bring that over into, again, the meat of this SEC schedule. But it was nice to see. It looked like the old LSU last week. It really did. But again, it was Kentucky, and as you mentioned, Kentucky probably not the team that a lot of people thought they were.
They're a little better, but not really SEC caliber. And LSU's had trouble stopping the run. If LSU can stop the run, that's going to be tough against spread attacks. They've historically had difficulty doing that. And make Bo Wallace beat them, that's their best chance.
Guys, I got about a minute left. I'll ask both of you. Green Bay Saints, who do you like?
Green Bay.
Yeah, I like Green Bay.
Green Bay. Ole Miss, LSU?
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss.
Yeah. I'm trying to give LSU and trying to give the Saints the best opportunity. I'm not good at this
hard.
at all.
Look, they got to prove it to me both.
Yes,
okay,
absolutely.
They really do. I mean, I'm not going to get sucked into this now. Green Bay is playing as well as anybody in the NFL right now. The Saints are home, but all this history that's been brought up in the Peyton era, that's not this team.
Right.
This team's got to prove itself on its own. And as far as LSU goes, they got to prove that last week was not a fluke.
Right.
That they have matured as a team, especially along those lines. Anything you guys can add? About 20 seconds.
I was just going to say, for as far as my Green Bay pick, it's less about the Saints and more about how well Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers are playing. They're out of their mind right now.
The Dome crowd is going to be a big part of that, and they can help maybe will this team to win if they can keep the mistakes to a minimum.
Absolutely.
No doubt. Coach Rick Gaille of Sportsnola.com, Bradley Handwerger, freelance journalist who is writing for EricAsher.com. Thanks so much for being with us tonight.
It's fun.
Thank you.
And again, thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night at 10 p.m. right here on WLAE TV, and also on Pelican Sports Television now at 9 p.m. in Baton Rouge, New Orleans, and Lafayette. You can catch me on the radio weekdays 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. on WGSO 990 a.m. Remember, if you missed any of the previous episodes of Inside New Orleans Sports, you can catch those at ericasher.com. You can always download my podcast and, of course, listen to my radio show live at ericasher.com. And you can check out Bradley's column at ericasher.com as well. Special thanks to our guest, again, Bradley Handwerger and Rick Gaille. Also to the WLAE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Donovan Joseph, Kenny Juneau, and my director, William Hill. Thanks so much for watching New Orleans. We'll see you right back here next Thursday night, 6 p.m. for Inside New Orleans Sports. Have a great evening.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
Located on Lake Pontchartrain, Brisbee's Lakefront Restaurant and Bar offers traditional West End favorites, a scenic view, oysters, and numerous tasty options. More information is available at 504-304-4125 or brisbeesrestaurant.com. At Natal's Air Conditioning, our motto is service honoring the golden rule. We're dedicated to providing the best air conditioning solution for your home or business in the New Orleans metro area. More information is available at 821-0005. Natel's Air Conditioning, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.